Good morning. How is everyone? Thank you so much for coming and spending your Saturday morning here with us. You are at the BFI London Film Festival in partnership with American Express, and I'm very delighted to welcome you here today for what's going to be, I think, a really memorable event. Our Screen Talks program offers us all a chance to step behind the screen and hear about creative inspirations and creative journeys. Before we begin today, I would like to offer a really sincere thank you to the whole team at Warner Brothers for offering us the opportunity to meet one of the undeniably great directors of our time, who is in conversation with another huge creative talent, which I don't think has been announced. I'm very excited to do so. So without further delay, would you please join me in welcoming and giving a very warm welcome, mind you, to today's host, Brett Goldstein.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. How are you today? I'm very honored to be here. The BFI called me and they said, would you like to talk to Denis Villeneuve? And I said, fuck yeah. And I said, that sounds easier. They said, oh, by the way, there'll be 2,200 people there and it's early Saturday morning. I said, what the fuck? But I'm very excited to be here with you all. Thanks for getting up for this. We've got about 75 minutes to try and get through all of it. You know, he's done a lot and it's all amazing, so let's get on with it. He's one of the great visionaries of modern cinema. He's an almost unheard of combination of a true artist who makes films of human emotion on a huge canvas. He speaks to the art house and the mainstream, and he's responsible for some of the biggest films of all time. He's a legend, he's a genius. I can't believe we all get to meet him. Will you please welcome to the stage, it's Denis Villeneuve! How are you guys? Hello.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very sweet of you. That's quite an introduction.
Nice, isn't it?
And I can say we are not in America. You can swear here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You can fucking do what you like. Yeah.
The thing is that Brett and I know each other since many years.
We go way back.
Yeah, and
a couple of months.
And yeah. You won't try to humiliate me today, Brent.
Listen, this is going to be like Frost Nixon. I'm here to take you down. Listen, I'm very excited. Look, there's so much to get through, and I'm quite stressed about it because I went through all your films in the last
few
days. Yeah, and they're all very good. And I'm curious, I think there's some things...
You're very generous.
I would love to... Can we start with... Let's get the sort of beginning out of the way. Did you always want to make films? Was that how it all started? Or was it something else creative?
No, I was very early. I was drawn into film and interested in the idea of being a director. I remember... at the time, I'm coming from countryside, Canada, and so it was all about American movies when I was young. And just discovering I remember watching films that were different from others, and starting to be interested in the work of and there was a name attached to those films that I felt were different and that they were talking to me. It was Spielberg, and I started to read about and to watch making ofs and very early. I was maybe 12 or 13, and then I really got into the idea of that. That felt like a fantastic way to explore reality and to. So at first I thought I would write, but I thought that filmmaking was much more, in some ways, interesting and powerful. So.
And what is it? All your films are so varied, and my question, I'm always curious in I'm sure you have lots of possible projects you could be doing and lots of things on the go. Is there a thing where you're like, I have to do this one? What's the tipping point?
I will say it's a good question, and I'm going to I will try to be as honest as possible today.
No lying,
No, but it's like when I look at my filmography, sometimes it's like calls. Like it feels like sometimes the projects are choosing me, and then more than I choose the project, meaning that I will something will get close to me, and I will feel an urge, a deep desire to explore that subject matter or that screenplay, but there's no plans. It's not like I want to. There was one plan. There was a plan to do sci-fi one day. I wanted to go towards sci-fi, but that was out of reach from where I was coming from. But apart from that, it's more about reading material or having an idea that where I will have a very important, deep connection with intimate connection that is not interesting for you, but that for me allows me to bring the movie to the screen.
Yeah. So I'm gonna. You've chosen 5 clips to show us, and when we get to those films, we'll talk about them. But I would love to at least try to address all of them, even if some of them we do very briefly. And your first film, I'm scared to try and pronounce it.
You're so sweet. It's
you take this one. You take the
August 32nd on Earth, Un 32 sur Terre.
Exactly.
The first feature.
And this is your first film is a romantic drama, and it is the first of many films where your lead character is a woman, which is interesting as a writer that you constantly seem to be drawn to female protagonists. It's just pretty cool. And what was the first? Why that one? Why was that the start?
It's a very small road movie involving 2 characters, and I remember at the time is that there's a big decision that you have to make as a filmmaker. At one point, you have to accept the idea that you're not Orson Welles and that you won't direct a masterpiece at first. That you have to. So I decided to do a movie that will be something that will be at my reach. 2 characters, a woman, a man on a sidewalk. Something that I could and explore. And at the time, I was really into French directors, new wave French directors, and it was like a very playful act of cinema, very clumsy, full of in French we said maladresse. It was but it was and strangely I must say it's a comedy, which is very weird for me to think. But it's a movie that was. The idea was really an exploration of the medium through with very little. That's something that I could be able to. And I will say that all my career, I think that I tried to make projects that are more and more ambitious and more complex. Always feeling that I have solved something very solid under my feet. That I'm not making too much big steps in between projects, making sure that I have full control over what I'm doing. So my first feature is a tiny road movie, existential road movie influenced by a French new wave. Voila.
But it's also philosophical, right? All your stuff, I think, is philosophical, if I may say, and I think one of the reasons I think you're fascinating is that your films seem to connect with massive audiences, but they're all pretty complex. Like none of them have easy sort of answers about good or evil, or you know what I mean? Like they're all pretty. That film, you start with that film, and it's a romantic drama, but it's also sort of what's the point? You know, what is love? There's always stuff in that. Tell me your second film, Maelström. I can say that. So if that was your first step, what was the?
Well, the second one was a movie that was. In reaction to the first one that was very bright, very light, very playful, and I tried to went to something. I was at the time taking myself very seriously. I wanted to the first movies. You want to exist as a filmmaker. You want you want to be taken seriously by. It's a movie again that was filled with influences, European influences. When you make personally. I mean, some filmmakers can come to the world with a very strong personality, Me, I was working at first with hearing a lot of voices in my head, a lot of filmmakers, heroes that I was influenced by, and I was still trying to figure out who I was.
Now, there's a little, in between your next one, you made a short film called Next Floor, which I hadn't seen and I watched last night. And Next Floor, if you haven't seen it, is a metaphor on greed. And it's people eating, and the more they eat, the floor collapses. And I wondered if you were annoyed at the film The Platform that clearly stole.
No, but I know what you're talking about. But
That's a yes.
but after my second, I will try to make that very a short story. But after my second feature, I felt I was working in a void. That I was like going the wrong direction with filmmaking. I was like more into trying to express myself instead of communicating something, and I felt after my second feature that had a nice success in Canada and in the film festival, but I was feeling that it was pointless, and that I decided to stop making films for many years, trying to go back to film school in some ways, study acting and studying screenwriting and doing a lot of introspection to try to understand more a bit the complexity of a human being. And it's just like maybe I made my first film too early. I was like at the time, you know, it was like at the time there was like Léos Carax that had made masterpieces at 19 years old or things like that, and everybody wanted, all my friends, we wanted to make our first feature before 30 years old. It was like ridiculous. Yeah, anyway, here we are. but the idea is I stopped making film for a while, and Next Floor is something that came out of nowhere. In Canada, it's like you have to apply when you make a film. It's like public funding. So you put your screenplay in the machine, and then you wait months, if not years, before you get funds. And as I was waiting for that, there was a lady that came to me and said to me, "I love Maelstrom. I bought this huge building in downtown Montreal. I want to do an art gallery into it, but the soul of the building, it's a very old building. I would love to make a short film inside to capture the essence of it." And I accepted. I said, okay, I'm going to go to the meeting to meet her to try to convince her to not to do that, because you should never put your own money into film. You know, it's like,
rule number one.
And rule number one. Thank you, Brett. And she said to me, "Monsieur Villeneuve, you're here. We ask you to come here to talk about cinema. When it's time for money, please leave it to us." And she was quite serious. She financed a full. Phoebe Greenberg financed a full short film shot in 35 millimeter, 5 days. It was like incredible. Wow. And it was the first time of my life that I was doing a movie for one person, which was amazing.
Wow.
I mean, yeah. So I had no, and the movie traveled a lot after, but it was interesting to do that. And I remember that this idea of the freedom I had doing this film, because there was no pressure. I thought nobody will see this movie, and that I remember the joy of it. And I kept that after that. Yeah.
Is that something you think now? Like even when you're making something now, do you think about the audience in your head? Are you making it for one person? Are you trying to make it for everyone, or are you making it for you and hoping it plays to others?
Frankly, it's an equilibrium, because you have to, like a movie like Dune, you have to. After that, when I came back to cinema, to filmmaking, it was more. I'd learned that it has to be an act of generosity, and you have to communicate, and you have to be in a relationship, and the idea of to be in a relationship with other people, which makes absolute sense and makes all that meaningful. Yeah. So I will not say that I as I'm making the film, as I'm writing the film, I'm thinking about other people. When I'm making it, I became totalitarian and just about the deep pleasure of cinema.
Great. Tell me this. I didn't know you did that acting sidebar. Did you act when you took time off and you went to film school, when you were learning about acting? Did you do acting?
No, I'm a terrible actor, and you know, Brett, I have a scar here on my hand, and this is there to remind me to never act. I did one audition.
What happened to your hand?
Yeah, I did one audition once for a friend of mine, and in the audition, I cut myself and I was pissing blood everywhere.
Oh.
And no, I'm a terrible actor. But what I did, which I will strongly recommend to any young filmmaker, is to sit in a theater and watch a play being built in front of your eyes with a director, a stage play, with actors on stage. And the way I learned tremendously watching a famous director at Ombre Richard, who had the generosity to allow me to see his full process working with actors, that I learned tremendously. Yeah.
Do you, I was going to ask you this later, but I'm going to ask you now. All your films have amazing performances in them, and you started small and you got to Dune, where you have 25 of the biggest stars in the world in it. Like, how do you manage actors? And as you got bigger and your actors became bigger personalities, I'm sure, and egos, how do you manage all of that?
First rule, you avoid the assholes.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And
what if
the reputation? Some people have bad reputations. No, but seriously,
what if any accidentally slip in?
No, but I've been in situations sometimes. But the idea is to, at the end of the day, it's all about relationships, about trust, and I try as much as possible. The preparation is very important, where you build when you meet an actor or an actress, to establish a relationship of trust, communication. I'm trying to do my best as quickly as possible before the shoot to establish, to understand who is the person in front of me, how to communicate with this person. I'm more of a chameleon, someone that adjusts myself. I don't come with dogmas. I'm more there to understand the artist that I have in front of me and how can I communicate with this person. At best, all actors are different, and it's part of the game to understand what is the animal in front of me and how I can, yeah. But that involves sometimes working with crazy people and trying to find a way to make myself respected. That happened, yeah. But that's I'm paid for that.
Yeah. I can't ask for names, can I? I can guess, but I can't ask.
No, you can't.
So then you made a film called Polytechnique. Now, Polytechnique is based on the true story of the 1989 Montreal Polytechnique massacre. So it's obviously a very serious and sensitive subject to approach. Can you tell me, like, why and how you approach such a sort of difficult thing? And obviously the film works, and I think is a very loved and respected film, but you're dealing with real people, real victims. Like, can you talk me through that, please?
Yeah, it's that really came from I was offered that film by an actress. Her name is Karine Vanas. Karine wanted to approach this subject, which is that in 1989, something absolutely horrific happened in Montreal. It was, I think, one of the, if not the first, school shooting in world history. I think there had been like some crazy shooter in Texas, maybe in the 70s once, a sniper or something, but someone coming into a school with a gun, something that it was out of our imagination, and it's in 1989, and it's December 6th, a young man came to the School of Engineers in Montreal and shot 14 young women, a misogynist crime, something absolutely horrible. And it was a big trauma at home, of course, and very traumatic event in Montreal. And Karine had the courage to wanted to make a feature about that. And for me, it makes absolute sense to approach this subject 20 years later, because I felt that I had at the same age as the students that went through this, and there had been a lot of things written about the events, but nobody tried to approach it seen from the student's point of view. The student had been very judged. They had been judged the way they reacted to the event. But can you imagine someone coming with a gun in a school when it never happened before? People thought it was a joke at the beginning. Like, anyway, it's a long story, but it felt like there was something there to, and it was a personal journey also to try to put. We all felt wounded by this, and I felt it was a way to try to a step toward healing, for me to understand what happened there and how the people react. And I identified a lot with the students. So so I agreed to do that film. It was a very painful. It was by far the toughest movie I've made in my life, because it was dealing with, and we did a tremendous research. The screenwriter Jacques Davids and I, we spent a year meeting everybody, all the students, all the victims, the police, the investigator, coroner, everybody, the ambulance drivers. We met everybody, and we wrote a screenplay out of this. The subject, everybody were very afraid of that film. It's a very difficult film.
Did you have any personal rules making that in terms of how to make sure it's not exploitative, or do you know what I mean?
The idea was not trying to absolutely avoid the glorification of the killer and try to really focus on the victim's point of views. The film is I think has some values. But it's in the same time. I probably made mistakes making it. It's like and it's a film that cinematically, from a filmmaker point of view, I was like trying a lot of things. I think I was a bit all over the place, frankly. So it's a movie that was, to my big relief, well received, because people understood the idea of we're trying to do something that will be suiting.
Yeah. We have a clip from this, I believe, that you have chosen. Should we watch it and then you tell us what this scene means to you?
But let's watch it and
let's see.
Thank you. It's a film that was, as my two first features were very influenced by European filmmakers. This one really, it was a way to come back home. And to, again, I was influenced by a filmmaker that I adore, which his name is Michel Brault, very famous director at home, who is a pioneer of cinéma direct. Michel Brault is the first cameraman who took a 16mm camera, Aton camera, on his shoulder. Before it didn't exist, it was all on tripod, but the National Film Board, they were the first one who started to use cameras on their shoulder and to be able to bring sound and to go into reality and go deeper into reality. And a lot of fantastic masterpieces have been made in the 60s and 70s in National Film Board documentaries. I'm from a land of documentary filmmaker. And fiction was not something that was that much respected at home. And my generation, we were always compared to those masters, you know. So it was always like dealing with the weight of that generation that make so beautiful movies about reality and really anthropologic and ethnographic film that are still today inspires me. Very poetic. And Polytechnique is a movie that was inspired by this idea of trying to observe reality and to be trying to be as honest as possible in the way I represent the reality. Of course, I prep for months and months trying to understand how those events occurred, trying to bring it as close to what it could have been at the time. And I remember the first day when I directed and I say action, I say, I'm full of shit. It's like I will never be able to bring that to the screen. I'm in pure fiction. It's even if I know exactly all the trajectories of everybody, how it happens, that we reproduce the set as close as possible, that everything is, we will never get close to how it was a big lesson for me.
But isn't the thing in that clip, what I think we see in a lot of your stuff is what you can do that you can't do in documentary is poetic realism is the feeling of the person when the sound comes up and we're seeing what they see. And I think you're good at silences, or at least the bits between talking. There's a lot of stillness and people looking and thinking, and I see that in all your films, even in Dune, which is so packed full of stuff. You have these moments of stillness that build to...
But the thing is that my dream, I always dreamed to make a movie that would be perceived as a regular film, but without dialogue, that people will not feel the void but that will be purely cinematic and using the power of cinema. Dialogues are very like a crouch sometimes. It's like dialogues are coming from the theater or television. I mean, I love dialogues, but I'm just saying, not in cinema. And I hope one day I will be able to make a film that will not use the spoken language. Yeah. And I try as much as possible to use the power of images, as any filmmaker do, I guess.
Your next film, Incendies, have I pronounced that correctly?
In fact, you don't. It's Incendies. Yeah, it's almost. No, but I mean, I'm dealing with my own accent on a daily basis. So.
We're all doing our best. Your next film, Incendies, was nominated for the best foreign language film. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It was a big day, big deal. Tell us why you went from Polytechnique to that.
In fact, both movies were written in the same time.
Right.
I had Incendies is a movie that is based on a play written by Wajdi Mouawad, a Lebanese-born author that was raised part in France and Quebec, and is a genius. The play is a masterpiece. And when I saw the play, to answer what it's a play about a fictional war in the Middle East, and there's like but I felt that deeply it was reaching something deep inside me about something very specific, and I felt that I would be able to bring that to the screen, and I convinced Wajdi to it's a 4-hour play with long monologues. It was difficult. It took me years to adapt that to the screen, but it was a massive privilege to work on that project. It's a project that changed my life in some ways, and it's yeah. Sorry, I forgot what was your question exactly.
It was why that one next, like what? But you've answered it, I believe.
Because when I stopped making film, I said to myself, next time I take a camera, it needs to be meaningful. It needs to be for the right reasons. It needs to be like, and I felt when I saw that play, I remember getting out of the theater, and my wife said at the time, "Oh, you're going to make a movie again." Wow. And I had been silent for a year. I had not talked about cinema for years and years. And when I saw that play, it's if ever you have the chance to see that play, Incendies, it's really one of the best things I've seen on stage. Yeah. And it has to do with to deal with the heritage. The heritage of violence, of anger from generation to generation, and it spoke me deeply.
It's also I think we have a clip, but you, again, saying you like to not have dialogue, and it was a 4-hour play with lots of monologues. You're very good at people listening. I think it's interesting how often in your stuff we watch people, less people talking, more people listening.
You really did your homework. Actually, you watch my films.
I have actually seen your film.
No, but Brett, you're right. There's something in Incendies, it's a great example of that. There's an actress that I casted specifically because I thought she was a fantastic listener. That how someone receive and how I was shooting, not necessarily the people talking in the movie, but more how the people listening to and how the impact of the words on someone that I was fascinated by.
Should we look at the clip you've chosen from this? It's
Yeah.
good.
Honestly, I think showing you this was the worst idea ever. I realize it's just that it's out of context. It means nothing to you, and it's a massive spoiler at the same time. So I apologize, but it's
So good.
It's just that both movies, the clips that you saw from both movies, it's just that the movies are extremely violent. And I think that those are the two scenes in Polytechnique and Incendies where it's like more quiet. But it's a very devastating story where we follow two young adults that at the death of their mother, in the will, they will learn that they have a brother that they never heard of and a father that they thought was dead in the war in the Middle East, and both will go on the start an investigation in that country that is in fact Lebanon, but it's disguised in the play and in the movie as a fictional country, but it represents Lebanon, and we will discover the story of their origins through the movie, and it's a very poignant. It's a incredible story written by Wajdi Mawad. Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, obviously it's all been ruined for you now, but you should. It's really, really good. So then you did one of my personal favorites of yours, Enemy. Love Enemy. I fucking love Enemy. I think it's so good. Tell us about Enemy.
When we did Enemy, we said to each other, Jake Gyllenhaal, cinematographer Nicolas Bolduc, and Matt Adam, the editor, and Patrice Vermette, anyway, the production designer, we were like a group of 5 artists making this film, saying to each other, we have the time of our life, it's so great, we are totally free, but nobody will watch this film. And only,
I did.
And only a few humans from time to time, say I'm in a subway or on the street and someone passed by and it's like and they just quietly whisper in my ear, I love Enemy. And they went, it's a shame almost to it.
It's how we met, wasn't it?
One day, my father came to me and said, son, I really loved Enemy. But what it is about? And I said, Papa, it's a documentary about your subconscious. Nice. Which is true, by the way. But it's a friend of mine, Nev Fitchman from Toronto. At the time, I wanted to try a project in English, and I wanted to work with Nev, and he had the rights of a José Saramago novel, L'autre comme moi, and it's a beautiful novel, very cinematic, about a man who meets himself, and it was at the end of the day, the truth is this movie was designed as a laboratory to have fun with an actor, because my first 4 features had the feeling that I had like strong bond with the cinematographer, with the editor, but the actors I felt were always like coming in front of the camera, going away. I felt I wanted to develop a strong complicity and to bring the actor at the center of the creative process. And this is why I got Jake Gyllenhaal, by the way. He was willing to do a laboratory like that, and we had tremendous fun, explore acting in different ways during that 40 days shoot. And that was a very, very, very explosive experience for me. That gave like a tiny movie, Enemy, that is like a kind of UFO, very strange film that I love, deeply love. It's a movie that is very honest in some ways. It's a movie also that I've made. I made two movies in the same time, but technically in the same time, meaning that I did my first American film, Prisoners, and Enemy at the same time. I directed Enemy, cut Enemy as I was doing prep on Prisoners, shot Prisoners, did the sound of Enemy as I was prepping the sound of Prisoners, and both movies were finished a week apart. And the idea there is that I was convinced that Hollywood will destroy me, and that Prisoners will have destroyed my identity and as a filmmaker, and that Enemy was my secret weapon. So if people will look at Prisoners saying, "Where is he?" They could look at Enemies always there.
Oh wow!
You know? So having that yeah, that was the idea.
So tell us about Prisoners, which was your first big Hollywood film. Like, I mean, I don't think that's a. I think it's not a simple film. Prisoners. It's not a morally straightforward film. It's still.
No, it's a movie that when I did Polytechnique. Anyway, I will try to make a short story here. But the idea is that I started to get offered from getting screenplays from Hollywood. I was not necessarily dreaming to go to Los Angeles. For me, I was afraid of being again crushed by the system. I didn't want to make. Sequels, or I wanted to control my thing and do my films, but Hollywood came to me, and I got that screenplay that I thought was very, very powerful, Prisoners, and I was invited to pitch to the studio, and I say that's going to be interesting, a nice cultural experience. I will finally meet those executive, you know, in Los Angeles, and so I went there well prepared, but with no expectations. I just wanted to experience what it is to meet Hollywood producers, and because maybe I was very relaxed, I got it, and it's a movie that was in continuity with Incendies, an exploration of cycles of violence that I was very interested by. And I was convinced, again, that as I was shooting, that someone will tap on my shoulder and say, "Denis, we love your accent, you're a very sweet guy, but here's your plane ticket, you can go back to Montreal." I was sure that, and honestly, it was at that time the best shooting experience, the best cinematographic experience of my life. I've never feel respected like that. They gave me everything I wanted. I shot the movie. I said to myself, then it's going to happen in the editing room. You know, they accepted my director's cut, and I was like, wow. I was really. It was a perfect experience, and I had tasted what it is to make a movie with money. Yeah. The power of it's because at the end of the day, what you try to do is always to bring your dreams, what you have in your mind, to the screen, and there's things that you can do in Los Angeles that it wasn't possible to do at home. Very simple things, like to make a movie that will happen under covered weather with rain all the time. See, I cannot do that in Montreal, but in LA, I had the chance to have the means to not control the weather. That's not.
This is too much.
She's insane, by the way. Okay, no, I won't go there. Okay, it was a fantastic experience, and I decided to move forward in Los Angeles.
So then you did another absolute banger. You did Sicario, which which was another sort of seismic step up, right, in terms of scale and action and cast and egos, I imagine. Was it as lovely as an experience as prisoners in terms of being left alone and encouraged, or how was it?
Sicario is a project I wanted to explore the border of United States and Mexico. I thought it was a very sadly meaningful part of the world, and I read that incredible screenplay written by Taylor Sheridan, which to this day one of the best screenplay I've read. Taylor is tremendously talented, and it's still today one of the fastest movies I've made, meaning that I read it, I met the producers, it was made very quickly, and to this day is one of the nice experience. There was like in French we said une adéquation, I mean like an equilibrium, a balance between what the movie needed and the budget, and it was like pretty. And I was working with Roger Deakins for the second time, which was as a master, and it was like I was absolutely inspired by Emily Blunt and by Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin, that were like my dream cast, and but the way, the reality that it depicts, there's something, it feels real because it is close to reality. But that all goes back to Taylor Sheridan having done his homeworks.
In the clip that we're about to show from this, look at, it's a really incredible, suspenseful, exciting sequence, but it's all, look how much listening is going on in this. I think that's what makes it. You're very good at the old listening. Have a look at this. Here, have a look. It's very good. Again, if I may, Sicario is interesting in the same way Dune is interesting, and Prisoners, and most of your stuff, that it plays to a mainstream audience is very exciting and thrilling, but it's fucking complicated and doesn't leave you like with a sort of fist bump, like, yay, the good guys won. It's like, oh, she doesn't do the thing at the end. It leaves you with grey.
That's what is the moral ambiguity and the fact that what interested me in Sicario, exactly, it was not depicting the world as black and white, but an exploration of gray zones. She's an FBI agent. Every time she shoots a bullet, she has to justify file form. She has to explain why she shot that bullet. It's a huge responsibility but she got involved with a secret operation led by the CIA, and she's discovering a new way of interacting with reality that says a lot of things about America, and I thought it was brilliant screenplay again.
Now the next film we're going to talk about is probably in my top 10 of all time, and a little side note, I happen to have worked with the producer of this film and the actor of this film, and I asked both of them in their whole career what was the film that was the best experience to make and the film they're most proud of, the finished result, and both of them said Arrival. So that's nice, isn't it? I love Arrival. It's a perfect film, and it's so it just hasn't been done like that, and the way. Tell us about how you got to that. It's also your most hopeful, maybe.
But I had done Polytechnique, Incendies, Prisoners, and Sicario, that are all, for those people who have seen one of these films, they are all very dark, violent films. Mm-hmm. And I remember that when I did Sicario, the deal I had made with myself is, okay, I'm going back there again, but I need something to get out of that zone. I need some light, some hope, I need some warmth, I need love, I need something that will bring, and I was in the same time looking for a project to do for science fiction, and it came to me that a producer approached me with the novel written by Ted Chiang. It's a little short story called The Story of Your, it's not a novel, sorry, it's a short story called The Story of Your Life, 30-page masterpiece, The Story of Your Life, written by Ted Chiang. I recommend if you can read it. It's incredible. And so I read that, and it's about language, about how language can change your perception of reality. And I thought it was just absolutely brilliant, and it is exactly what I was looking for. And I had that, Eric Eisert wrote a screenplay, and we yeah, it's me too. It's one of my nice experience in my life. Yeah,
it's wonderful. We should move forward. You did Blade Runner 2049. Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. And then you went and did Dune and Dune Part 2. Now, I think there is a parallel of something which I think, you tell me if I'm wrong, Blade Runner 2049 is a very unusual sort of Hollywood story where we're so used to seeing the narrative of the one, you are the one, the main character is the one, they have to sort of go through their challenges and then they become the one. And in Blade Runner, it's a man who thinks he's the one, and he isn't. And he's sort of told, of course you think you're the one. Everyone thinks they're the one. And in Dune, he's the Messiah, but he isn't, but he is, and it's bad. Is that your view on the world?
I'm not, frankly, it's not, the idea of the chosen one is something that honestly I'm not interested by. That's what I love about the brilliance of the screenplay of Blade Runner 2049. That's something that I really love, the fact that it plays with that idea. And in doing Dune, I tried to approach it in a way that is closer to what Frank Herbert intended to do at first. When Frank Herbert, when the book was released, the first Dune, Frank Herbert was very disappointed the way some readers read the novel. Some thought that it was a celebration of the hero of Paul Atreides, and for Herbert, he wanted to make sure that it was a cautionary tale against messianic figures, and he wrote a second book called Dune Messiah to correct that perception. And me knowing this, I tried to do the Dune adaptation, being in trying to be faithful to Frank Herbert's initial idea, initial desires. Yeah.
So if we have to skip to Dune 2, it's such a huge thing, craft-wise and story-wise, and everything about it. How do you manage that psychologically? Do you have this huge thing in your head and then you're breaking it down day by day? Like, how do you sort of cope with the sheer scale of it without having a nervous breakdown?
But first of all, I'm not alone. There's a crew around me of colleagues that help me doing so, and it's a lot of preparation, and it's all about prep. It's all about preparation before and on the day is like any shooting day, but it's just the preparation. It's just long. It's there's world building is very demanding. It's you have to create everything, so it's a lot of work. That's what I will say. It's so much fun though. Yeah. So, but on the days. I will say that those movies, frankly, the most difficult thing is stamina, because you have to, it's not a movie like Sicario is 35 or 40 days of shooting or something like that, but a movie like Dune is 120 or it's a lot. Those are long shoots, and to be able to sustain your energy and your focus, and to try to be the toughest thing, I think, is that all the movies I've made, there's always a morning, one day at least minimum, where I'm bad. Right. Those are tough.
Bad because you're tired? Or
yeah, tired, and you don't. It's like trying to play the instrument, and then it's out of tune. You know, you're out of tune. Your brain is out of tune. Cinema is an act of present. I have to be 100% there, and there's always a day where, and that's the worst day of my life. But I've learned that you can always reshoot.
Is there anything in any of your films where you're like, that was the day I was too tired.
Yeah.
We wouldn't know. You wouldn't tell us, would you?
It's probably out on the floor of the cutting room.
And I think the other thing I'm sort of curious is how you maintain for something this grand, and you're in different countries and you're with different casts, how you sort of keep the tone. Particularly, I think for actors when they're not, everyone's separate, they're doing different parts. Like when you're arriving in a new place with new people to work with, but you've already done this part of it. Like, how are you sort of keeping the tone of it consistent? Is that just conversations, or are you showing people what you've already
it's
done?
very important, the work before the camera roll. I mean, when you're on set, it's too late. It's too late to talk about ideas. It's a visceral process. But before, make sure that everybody understands exactly that there's even I'm open to talk about dialogues. I'm to change lines sometimes to make sure that it's like as natural as possible, and that there's no shadows or things that actors don't understand. So the preparation, the intellectual preparation, is very, very important. And after that, I really try at my best to create an environment of focus and intimacy around the camera. That those are big movies, but when you come on set, it's like the same atmosphere as an indie film, but with big environment. But around the camera, it's small. You know.
How do you? So, according to my facts, the sandworm riding sequence took 44 days to film. How do you keep your head on day 33 of filming? I don't understand what's happening on. Okay. What's day 33?
The way we did it is very simple. Is that I realized that the way I wanted to approach this, I didn't want to compromise. And most importantly, with visual effects, is the light. How will you shoot it? And I wanted to shoot it with natural light, and I realized that it will take months to shoot that, to have the shots. Each shots were very complex. Each shots demand sometimes half a day, sometimes a day, sometimes a week to do one shot because of the complexity of each shot. So the way to do that is that if I had done it myself, I will still be shooting today. So the way is that I tried something that I had not really done before, which is to have like another unit, which we call the worm unit. Yeah. The worm unit was dedicated to shoot parallel, and it was because it was a very slow process. I was able to direct both units, meaning that I was working on the main unit. And as they were prepping, I was giving to be able to give a direction to this unit. This unit was under the supervision, which is very important. This unit was under the supervision of a director that her name is Tania Lapointe, and that understood perfectly my vision. That Tania had been working with me for many films. She was like the person that knew exactly my vision, and she's my wife also. So it's like so it's she and it was
feels like cheating.
And she it was very moving for me because it was the first time that I was able to communicate like that and to make sure that Tania will never let go. I mean, she's so the shots, when the shots were, we were able to communicate, and I was able to direct both units like that because Tania was there, because she was helping me and doing so. And I remember one day walking, that's the truth, I'm with Greg Fraser, the cinematographer. We are out of the theater. We just watched Tanya's dailies. And we said to ourselves, isn't it great? I mean, the shots are exactly, or even better than what we were dreaming of, but we didn't spend a week under the sun. It's like a lazy filmmaking. Wow. But it was the way to, a movie like Dune needed multiple cameras like that. Yeah. and we were to shoot, and that honestly was a challenge for me because I'm someone that is very I'm very old-fashioned. I love to work with one camera and one angle and to focus on one thing, and I'm not able to do many. So to work with 2 units like that was a big challenge. Thanks to Tanya, thanks to Greg Fraser that helped me to do so.
And as someone, you clearly love the book, and taking on such a huge undertaking with all its history and its fan base and all of that. How do you adapt it? Like how do you go? What was your process of adapting it and condensing it and fitting it all in? How do you do it?
First of all, something I learned through the years that I love to share writing, screenwriting. And on the first Dune, Eric Roth work on the screenplay, and John Spade. John Spade did a lot of work on the screenplay with me, and the idea that we took right at the start when Eric was the first one to put his hand on the keyboard, said, if you had to give me one word, a key to open the book, this very complex book, and I said, women. We have to make an adaptation that focuses on the Bene Gesserit. The book follows many factions, many people with a lot of agendas, but there's one, for those who knows the book, the sisterhood of the Bene Gesserit I thought were the most meaningful, interesting, and relevant. And so it's Dune Part 1 and Part 2 are a Bene Gesserit adaptation. I will say there's a lot of things that I let go. When you adapt, you kill. I mean, it's really like an act of artistic violence. It's like the idea is you try to be as faithful as possible to the poetry and the meaning of the object, but you have to transform it because it's yeah. The adaptation says more things about me than about Frank Herbert, frankly.
Interesting. We've got a clip. Shall we have a look? Look at all the listening in the clip. It's good. Most important bit in the film?
Yeah, we have a way to give you spoilers. I don't know, but it's a scene that is very, very important, and it's like the moment where in the adaptation of Part 2, I use the character of Shani. The character of Shani was changed from the book, became more prominent as a character that gave us distance with the main protagonist, Paul Atreides, in order to get closer to Frank Herbert's idea to create this idea of a cautionary tale. And in this third act like that, Zendaya gave an incredible performance where she has mostly no dialogue, but just all the way, it's just through her reactions that we will understand the tragedy. And that scene was one of the big challenge for me, because warm riding is one thing, big special effects, it's toys, but that for me was challenging because I had like 12 or 15 actors in the same time in the room, each one being an A-list that could have his own feature film. I mean, and having all those extra. And I wanted to shoot everything with only one camera because it's like to not compromise on the lenses, to make sure that aesthetically it will be as perfect as possible, and so it was a very long shoot, and to sustain the atmosphere and to sustain that in specific energy that I was looking for, that was a nice challenge, I would say.
Well, I think you pulled it off. Is there?
Thank you.
Yeah, well done. And also, if we can, both of them, Blade Runner 2049 as well, like such a huge undertaking and risky, like a very sort of dangerous.
Suicidal?
Yeah. But again, you fucking pulled it off. And I'm wondering, like, for anyone here who is interested in making stuff, like, if I may say, these are all sort of very brave things to do. And I wonder if there's any part of you. Do you have any sort of philosophy or mental health thing that makes you go, fuck it, I'm doing this, I believe in it?
No, but listen, I was doing the two films that I think are the most risky in my career were Polytechnique and Blade Runner 2049 for different reasons. Blade Runner 2049 for, I would say, to make the sequel of one of the great classic of one of a masterpiece, the Ridley Scott masterpiece. It was like probably the worst idea ever.
Was it brought to you, or did you seek that out?
It was brought to me.
Okay.
It's insane. The ideas. When I was doing Prisoners, the producer, the studio behind the Prisoners, one day they stopped the meeting, said, sorry, Denis, we have to. Sir Ridley Scott is next room. He's waiting for us. We are not supposed to tell you, but we're doing the sequel of Blade Runner. And I was like, wow. But the idea that Ridley was behind it, I was okay. Okay, and I remember one day I was in the office of the producer, looking at the artwork of the movie, and I was like, wow. I was really impressed. I was very excited at the idea that Ridley will go there again. Blade Runner is one of my favorite films. Okay. And as I was doing Sicario, I got a phone call, and the producer, a friend of mine, Andrew Kosovo, said, Denis, I'm going to go to New Mexico tomorrow to meet you. You have to find a place where nobody will see us. And we pick up a little restaurant, and he put an envelope in front of me, and he said, and it was written Queensboro on the envelope, and he said, Queensboro doesn't exist. And it was like, and he said, it's the sequel of Blade Runner, and we would love you to read it and tell us what you think, because we're looking for a director. Because Ridley, Ridley is the most prolific, over busy director. I mean, when I direct one movie, Ridley does three. Yeah. I mean, it's like I think that Harrison Ford was tired of waiting, and so I had in the past refused a few sci-fi films, big films, because I felt that I was not ready. But after having done Sicario, I felt that an Arrival, I felt that I had the muscles to be able to carry a project like that. And I said, okay, if I do one big sci-fi movie and I risk everything, that's beautiful. Blade Runner 2049, to make a sequel to my favorite film, is a beautiful way to end my career. And I thought it was very romantic, Don Quixote, I agreed. At first I declined, but finally they came back to me, and I agreed to do it, and we changed the screenplay to bring it closer to me, because it was written for Ridley. We are two very different human beings, and it was a very special experience.
We have to start to wrap this up, but I wonder, not to put you on the spot, but we are here. Is there any great piece of advice that you have for anyone who wants to make films themselves, whether it's from you or something you were told?
But the thing is that I started by doing documentaries. I came to cinema through documentaries, and I think that the idea to take an iPhone and to study reality through any kind of camera, but to study reality, to listen to reality, and to try to figure out your own the way you perceive with a lens, how you perceive reality, how you can create poetry with a lens by yourself, alone, is very important. When I tried to make a short story, but I did an experience when after being a film student, I've traveled for 6 or 7 months around the world making short films, documentary short films. I went alone with a camera, making short films, and to these days, it's the experience that even the relationship with the camera, being alone with the camera, being forced to find meaning with a camera, like a pencil, is still today something that deeply inspired me. And when I walk on a set of a movie like Dune Part 2, every morning when I open the door of the car, I remember those days when I was alone with the camera, how I felt, the freedom, and to keep that pure relationship with the lens, and that's the only way I kept my identity alive, by that, with that relationship with the camera. Even if there's 1,000 people around, I focus on the intimacy with the camera, and so that's what I will say. Go in the street with your iPhone and shoot.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasure. Thank you all for being here. Can I have a round of applause for the BFI?
Thank you very much. Thank you.